And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit. Here, rejoining us back on the couch for this week's episode, Mr. Lee Hancock.
How's it going, guys? Lee here.
Mate, after a little stint abroad interstate there in Melbourne, you had a bit of a bout of the flu.
Oh, I did. It was terrible.
How are you feeling?
Better now.
Bit and firing?
So, it's a great day to be inside doing a pod. It's absolutely terrible outside.
It's horrendous, isn't it? It's shocking out there.
Look at this guy, bringing out the big words early. Mr. Roy Hancock also joining us. How are you, pal?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Full swing into the playoffs and a lot of NBL action, which I'm keen to get into as well.
Mate, the NBL and NBA playoffs and finals for the NBL are running absolutely rampant at the moment, and we're loving it. The content is just pouring out. We're stoked, all three of us. The band's back together on the couch. We've got a lot to discuss today. We're going to rattle through some quick odds and ends, and we're going to do a bit of a power rankings based on the 8 teams remaining in the NBA, just based on, we think, probability to win the title. So looking forward to getting into that with you guys shortly. But without further ado, just quickly, we'll rip through some quick housekeeping points. As always, guys, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to the show, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. I know all of us certainly appreciate it. It means the world to us, as well as following all of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok for when all the latest news breaks from both the NBA and NBL, because it is coming quick and fast at the moment, is it not, lads?
Oh, I mean, there's always heavy amounts of news, isn't there? But particularly over the off season, like it's underrated how much news happens over the off season. So
how are we feeling? Just quickly on that note, without meaning to cut you off there, Ro, we're coming to the end now of basketball season for both NBA and NBL.
Yep.
Is there starting to that little sadness onset starting to sink in, Lee?
Not really. As soon as the basketball season finishes, I start thinking about who I'm going to pick up in my fantasy league.
Absolutely.
And like 2K always keeps us on our feet, so we're never short of NBA, presence.
Yep. And for yourself, Ro, similar mindset there?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's pretty bittersweet as the season comes to an end because we don't have that daily action to keep up with. But in saying that, as I was mentioning before, the news never stops with the NBA, whether it be trades over the off-season or just big happenings over the off-season. It's a 24/7, 365 business, isn't it?
I was about to say, no doubt for all of us with partners each, I'm sure they're pretty happy this time of year when they kind of get their boyfriends back, because I know I speak on behalf of myself, I'm pretty glued to my phone during NBA season, but that goes with the territory. But without further ado, guys, let's get into some quick odds and ends. Now, here's one for you. It's kind of almost null and void due to him coming back today, Joel Embiid.
Yep.
But earlier in the week, it was revealed he suffered a right orbital fracture as well as a mild concussion in Game 6 versus the Raptors. Now, my kind of question and little point on this is, this happened with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They were up by 29 points. What was Doc Rivers thinking by keeping him in the game? Like, if this had he returned today, the Sixers got the win against the Heat back in Philly there. But if he had gone down and missed potentially this whole series and they had got knocked out, how poorly does that look on Doc Rivers?
Oh, it looks terrible on Doc Rivers, and it's unlike him to do something like this. He's I've grown up knowing that he's a great coach. It's just out of his character, I'd say. But no, it's just silly
29 points with 4 minutes to go, Ro. What was he thinking?
Completely unnecessary, wasn't it? And it probably reflects badly on him because he's been copping a bit of heat as it is, and particularly with the, mounting pressure on the Philadelphia 76ers. If, as you were saying, Nick, if Joel Embiid did miss the rest of this series and they went down, he would be copping some serious heat. His chair would have been ultimately hot.
And still is, even at the moment.
Yeah.
Even with that win today, they're currently down in the series 2-1 versus the Miami Heat, but his seat is growing increasingly hotter by the moment.
Here's a quick one for the both of you.
Please.
What's your gut feel on where Doc Rivers will be come the season's end? Do you think he'll be still coaching the Philadelphia 76ers, or do you think he'll be moved on?
I think no.
You think he won't be?
I don't think he will be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he'll move on too.
Yep. Oh, it's a big move.
Is it
for yourself?
Is it? Well, I think it's very dependent on what happens in the rest of this series. If they somehow, I don't know how it's going to happen. If they manage to somehow come back in this series against the Heat, he might be safe.
I'm keen to see where they are on all of our power rankings. I think we might differ a little bit, maybe.
It's 2-1 right now, isn't it? It's not unheard of if they came back.
And I mean, the 2 games that Philadelphia went down, Joel Embiid wasn't playing. So
and on the road as well.
And on the road, yeah. So it's interesting.
And Danny Green shooting like 1 of 11 from 3.
Well, not today. He was
No,
lights
it was
out.
It was good.
Lights
today.
out. But
Oh,
speaking of
GG.
another familiar face in Philadelphia there, Ben Simmons during the week underwent successful back surgery.
Yes.
This will now start an initial recovery period of 3 weeks before he begins an extensive rehab period. Hoping to be back there for training camp. But
I was just thinking,
can this be the point that gets him over the line? Can he return now, Lee?
can he? Well, I was just,
Can he return and actually grace us with his presence?
I think he can, and I think he can get to the caliber that he was over in Philly. But my question is, will throughout the rest of his career he have some like hindering hate from fans and the league in general?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
he
so.
will.
Yeah,
I think now it's become so prominent. I don't think there's really any way for him to shake it.
No.
He would have to just become an absolutely beloved star within the league, defensive player of the year, finals, really show out and show what made him such a great player initially and kind of change that perception.
I'm going to try keep open-minded because I feel like it's going to be similar to Russ this year, but even worse, where his terrible games will get on the media, and then the games where and then when he plays good, you won't hear about it.
In your time as an NBA fan, have you come across someone who has been so disliked in the NBA community? I can't.
Like Grayson Allen. But
Well, actually, beat me to it. I was about to say him, but I think universally, I think Ben Simmons probably takes the cake.
Yeah.
Even over players like you look at Harden, KD, even LeBron, it's, for as much as he's loved, he's also equally hated.
Yeah.
I think Ben Simmons takes the cake on that one.
I feel like it's sort of his is exacerbated by the fact that it's on and off the court.
Great word there. I love that word, exacerbated.
Word of the day.
Yeah, word of the day. Lock it in. Well, maybe another bloke who could potentially, I know certainly within the Warriors franchise, is becoming a hated name. Dylan Brooks. His absolutely horrendous foul there on Gary Payton during Game 2 has resulted in Payton suffering a fractured elbow as well as slight ligament damage. Now, we're looking at least 3 weeks for his return. Hopefully, should the Warriors there make it to the finals, he will return. But it's a big blow just for their defensive identity.
Absolutely.
But I think it's almost done more harm than good for the Grizzlies. Now, he'll sit out Game 3 against the Warriors there, Dylan Brooks, for that foul, which was completely unnecessary. But I think the way it's kind of fired up this Warriors franchise,
it has.
I think this will have done more harm than good.
Well, we were talking about the other week.
3 minutes into the game as well.
It's so unnecessary, and you don't like to see it. You like to see players playing with passion, obviously, in these playoff settings, but particularly not dirty plays like that. But, they're going to struggle without Dylan Brooks. And the fact of the matter is, as you were saying, Golden State are now coming out even with a bigger point to prove than they previously had, which was already an enormous point to prove. But on the other side of things, on the defensive end, GP out for those couple of weeks, it really does affect them on the defensive end.
At least at the moment. So, bit of a blow there, Haley.
I think it's going to fire up Draymond Green the most, to be honest. Like Rose said, you want to see some tough plays, but there's always a limit, and this was the limit. Like, imagine
this was just stupidity, though. It wasn't even close.
What if it happened to like Curry or Clay?
I tell you what, Brooks's head would be on the chopping block. Like public enemy number 1.
What did we think of Draymond exiting the game the other day, chucking the birds up to the crowd?
I love it. I love it. This is what makes sports so great, the passion that's involved. You need villains, you need heroes, and I love that Draymond's going to embrace that villain kind of role whilst they're in Memphis.
And he rubs salt into the wound by saying that he's on he's on 20-something million a year.
Yep.
A $20,000 fine's not going to do much for him, which is
very
true. Very true.
Speaking of a guy also who's not public enemy number 1, he's kind of loved and hated depending on where you see it. But Tyler Hero has clinched 6th man of the year. As a surprise to no one, he finished with 90 first place votes. Kevin Love finished second. 96, should I say, Hero had 96 first place votes. Kevin Love finished second. He had 3 first place votes. Cam Johnson had 1.
That says it all, doesn't it?
96, it was, as close as you can get to being unanimous without being unanimous. But across the season, he averaged 20.7 points, up 5.6 from last season. 4 assists, 5 rebounds, as well as going 40% from deep, which is up 4% from last season. Now, this has kind of been written in stone for quite a while, hasn't it, lads?
It has. It's been as short of odds, rather. Sorry.
Frog in the throat, old boy.
Yeah, a little bit. Still recovering. But yeah, no, I think we all knew that this was going to happen. And I guess from my point of view, what makes it even better is the fact that he had such a down year last year, to the point where we were thinking he might be dished off, sooner rather than later, and the Heat might not look into keeping him long term.
Yep.
And now he's put in his greatest season so far, and it's been
phenomenal.
really good to see. So
Phenomenal.
well deserved.
Lee, what do you think of Hero?
I love Hero.
Yeah.
I love Hero. And I think I love him so much because these really good 6 men of the year, or just 6 men in general, are usually some of the older heads. You look at like Carmelo, and they kind of embrace the role. The fact that he's embracing the role and he's young, he's very young, speaks highly to his character.
Well, we've put a post up on our socials during the week, guys. The Daily Dribble 23 on Instagram. Check out our Facebook as well. We had it up there during the week, and I posed the question, would you like to see Hero in a different environment and one in which he's starting? How do you think he would go in that role, or do you enjoy him as that spark plug off the bench?
I prefer him as that spark plug off the bench, but I'd love to see him in a starting role.
Do you think, Ro, he could continue the output he's giving at the moment while starting, say, a different franchise altogether?
Yeah, look, I think he could go to another franchise and be sort of like a 21 point a year player in a starting role. But personally, I think he's perfectly suited to this 6 man off the bench role, particularly on
starters minutes as well.
He is. It's not like he's coming in and only playing, 12 minutes off the bench. He's playing regular minutes. And the other thing is he's playing on a really good team with a great system, great coach, great supporting players around him as well. So you've got to take that into account.
Heat culture, baby.
Yeah, heat culture, absolutely.
We love it.
What do you reckon?
I love that role for him because he just absolutely excels in it, and he's given all the responsibility and all the ball he wants, which is awesome. And, they're not inflated stats, but the fact he gets the ball as much as he does is, a contributing factor as to, the output he gives.
Yep.
I think if he was starting, let's say hypothetically let's say I know a name that's been mentioned, the Utah Jazz.
Right.
When he's got to share the ball handling with Mike Conley, shots are going to Bogdanovic, you want to get touches to Rudy in the post, he's not going to get as much ample opportunity to put up shots.
No.
So I think this role really suits him. That being said, I would like to see what he can do.
Yeah.
Just for a season, just to kind of put my mind at ease, I would like to see what he can do in that role starting. But
as Spo said, he's their 6th starter.
He is.
Which really says it all. He doesn't even classify him as a bench player. He's just,
very
just
bright
another
future
guy.
Ahead for Hero there. But very well deserved, nevertheless. Our 6th man of the year for this season, Miami Heat's Tyler Hero.
Did anyone pick it?
Oh, I don't know who he had.
Yeah, I
I'd
can't even remember. We'll have to do a season review.
We will. In the coming weeks, once the finals are done, we'll do a bit of a review. Yeah. I feel like one of us might have, surely.
I'd hate to look at my predictions. I feel like I was way off the mark.
Yeah, that's part and parcel with covering the NBA. None of our predictions are ever right.
No, true.
Lads, let's move ahead.
The Daily Dribble.
All right, before I segue into a couple of NBL points there, odds and ends, quick shout out. I forgot to mention at the top of the show to the 3 networks we're a part of, guys. The Cover here in Australia, as well as Pop Culture Pros and the Spotlight Sports Network in the US. Very, very excited to be a part of all 3 networks, giving a platform to up-and-coming content creators to kind of showcase their work. So, guys, from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate all that you're doing and are stoked to be on this journey with you.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Let's transition into the NBL. Now, it's the most exciting time of the year. The NBL finals are upon us. Before I get into what transpired in Game 1 last night, during the week, it was announced the Hawks head coach. Now, they got swept by the Sydney Kings 2-0 in their semi-final series.
Yep.
The Hawks coach, Brian Goorjian, an Australian legend, will step down as head coach. He'll be overtaken by assistant Jacob Jackamus, and Goorjian will slot into a special advisor role there for the team. So still a part of the franchise, but just not in the top role.
Yep.
But I would say a big loss there for the Hawks because the knowledge and experience that Goorjian brings is just second to none. So.
Absolutely, but I'm glad that he's still staying in an advisor role, regardless. So keeping him within the organisation, which is quite handy.
And news, I think, whether it's a different franchise or not, irrelevant. News that will make, I think, the entire NBL community happy. Bryce Cotton, King Cotton, has re-signed on a 3-year deal with the Perth Wildcats over there, it's just fantastic news for the league because this guy has finished second in MVP voting this season, just behind Jalen Adams. It was really neck and neck between the two.
Yep.
But for the last couple of seasons, he has well and truly, just shown his class as the premier player within the league. Over that last 4 or 5 years, second to none what he's been able to achieve.
They just they sort of just had to chuck the absolute bag at him to keep him, didn't they? Like they had to, go out of their way to keep him because ultimately what he's done for Perth basketball and what he's done for the NBL in general is enormous, and it's more than words can really express. So
the bar was here, and single-handedly he was able to lift it to here. And on the back of that, the league's grown with him.
Absolutely.
So phenomenal. And he's so fun to watch. I was fortunate enough to see him in person this season. And just the class this guy oozes is phenomenal. So awesome to see him back in the league for another 3 seasons there. We were fortunate enough last Saturday, to head to Game 2 where Melbourne United played the JackJumpers. Now, they won 79-72.
Yep.
I won't go into too much detail, but just wanted to say this. In terms of sporting events I've been to, I think that was probably the most incredible, just in terms of atmosphere, in terms of excitement and passion, out there at My State Bank Arena. Like, it was just unparalleled to anything I'd been to before.
I could not agree more with that. In terms of just like live sporting events where everyone was invested as each other in that crowd, there was 5,000 strong plus, all with the same goal.
With arms around each other. Yeah. The voices were all gone Sunday.
Strangers hugging each other.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It was a sporting event that I'll never forget. And let me just tell you, what the JackJumpers have done for, Tasmania in general has been absolutely enormous. There was people before the JackJumpers were introduced who didn't give 2 shits about basketball. Did not care for it at all. And what it's done, it's turned people into avid basketball fans. And it's
probably
it's
no
so
better
great.
example. A little shout out to your sister and my partner, Annabelle.
Yep.
I know she always loves a little bit of a shout out on the podcast.
Yes.
But her herself, I know she's kind of, we've had quite a few arguments over the last couple of years about my visual media content on my phone or TV watching basketball. And she's kind of almost come to resent basketball because of how much time I spend on it. But now she is front and center, clamoring for a ticket, wants to be the first person through the doors tomorrow for our game. And it just shows, the way it's brought the community together here. And as you said, Roy, people who don't even like basketball. It's been fantastic. And, they carried that on with a historic Game 3 win there in Melbourne. So they paved their way to the grand final. We had Game 1 last night versus the Sydney Kings. Wasn't quite the result we wanted.
Yes.
The JackJumpers went down 95-78. It was really quite a tight affair up until half-time. Third quarter, as was the case in Game 1 versus Melbourne United, did the damage, and it kind of put the game to bed. But potentially, I think the biggest takeaway from this game, star player, MVP, just newly crowned MVP of the league, Jalen Adams, he's went down early in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury, had ice on it all throughout the fourth quarter, should I say, and after the game, looking in quite a bit of spot of bother. There is next to there's zero chance he'll suit up in Game 2 tomorrow in Hobart.
No.
But his likelihood of suiting up for the rest of the series is unknown at the moment, but it's not great.
Well, let's think about it. So your normal hammy, your minor hammy, it's still probably about maybe a week or 2.
And this is a hamstring that's troubled him throughout the season.
And we saw him after the game hobbling off. It did not look like a minor hammy.
Yep.
So, you'd definitely suggest that he won't be there on Sunday Arvo.
Absolutely
and
not.
You'd think it would be highly unlikely that he'll be back for the rest of this series, which is just an enormous out for the Sydney Kings.
And and I will say, for all, for as much as we're barracking for the JackJumpers, pride here, you hate to see these star players go down. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And, you don't want any kind of scapegoats or excuses as to why we won.
That's the thing.
So, I'll be happy to get a win tomorrow down here on home turf. Ecstatic to be going to that game. A big thank you to Intersport Hobart once again for the hookup.
Yes.
But you want to see the best players out there. So we hope for a speedy recovery there. Shout out to the boys from Fifth and Dribble. The wager is still on. hopefully the lads can tie it up at 1 apiece tomorrow down here in Hobart and get that carton back in my eagerly awaiting hands.
The last thing that you'd like, Nick, is to have to give up that second carton.
Yeah, after going down earlier in the season in our first wager, I've got to make amends and hopefully can get back on the board.
Yep.
In this series.
Just quickly, what odds do you give us to win tomorrow, Arvo? Down here at the Fortress without Jalen Adams. Personally, I still think it's going to be a very tough contest.
It's going to be a dogfight.
Because the Sydney Kings roster is deep and it's got NBA talent and it's got guys who probably should be in the NBA but haven't been yet.
Ian Clark, formerly of the...
he was light.
An NBA champion with the Warriors, should I say. Yep. NBA champion Ian Clark absolutely lit us up in the third quarter.
In saying that, I'll never write us off from any game down here because I know what the crowd environment's like down here. And I know we just play a different brand of basketball down here. So I'm giving us every chance, even though I'm expecting it to be no more than a few buckets either way.
I was just going to say, I watched the game. I don't watch a lot of NBL.
He's into it.
I had to watch the game. What was it last night?
I think
tomorrow's game is going to come out down to a turnovers game. Whoever can, give the least turnovers, because both the JackJumpers and the Kings last night were woeful on that end.
First half, the Kings were absolutely horrendous. Chase Buford really tightened that up at halftime, but they were really poor in that first half.
And it wasn't a pretty first half for either team in general. It was pretty shocking on both ends. But I think it's going to be a game whoever has the least turnovers. Do you know also what I did like in that first game?
Look at this. I'm just so excited. Look at this guy.
The NBL analysis from Lee.
I'll tell you what, next season, Lee on the NBL hot takes is going to be unbelievable.
As an NBL outsider, I was so appreciative that the umps just let them play. There was a couple of hard, you could say, fouls that didn't get called, and I was just happy that they let them play in the finals.
Do you think that's a trademark of the NBL? I guess I'll ask you, Nick, because I guess you've been following it for longer, whereas I've been following it since the JackJumpers have come into the league. Do you think the NBL is far more lenient on fouls in comparison to the NBA? My initial thoughts this year have been that I've seen many games where these fouls would have 110% been called in the NBA, but they seem to let it go, which I love to see.
I think there is a little more leniency, which is good. I like that. And I think the NBA needs to adopt more of that, especially in the playoffs. That's where, grit and grind comes out. You need to show a bit of passion, and a little bit of physicality is good for the game, I think. So,
and there's nothing worse than when the refs try to make it about themselves as well, which in the NBL, I've hardly seen many games where they've tried to make it about themselves. Whereas in the NBA, you can tell that they're ready to blow the whistle at even the most minor of offences, really.
Absolutely.
In their favour of the NBA umpires, I feel like they do play harder basketball over in the NBA. Like the fouls are a bit more obvious. But they just do call everything now because it's just so unsure. But
back on your initial point in regards to tomorrow's game there, Roy.
Yep.
Grab that one.
I'll grab the phone there. It's just falling away there. Yep, beautiful. Good one. I think, honestly, it's slightly biased, but I think the impact our home court will have is huge. I think the passion that the fans bring down here, shout out to everyone down here in Tassie who's heading to the game tomorrow. Like, bring your A game, because it really was the impact we had, even on last Saturday's game, just affecting big JLA, Joe Luala-Chul there. The whole crowd was against him, and it makes a difference. So
let me tell you, those tickets for this Sunday's game, I don't think in my history of sports in Tasmania particularly, have come across any tickets which have been as hot as those tickets. They were sold out in an instant. If you were trying to get a hold of a ticket, Good luck, because you're very, very unlikely to get one.
So you have some, Nick.
Yeah, mate.
Who are you going with?
I'm going with Annabelle.
Okay.
I've got her. So looking forward to that. I'll be front and centre.
Are they courtside?
No, they're not courtside. They're on the lower level though, so I'll be pretty close to the action.
For what it's worth, I'm coming along as well. So
going along for the ride.
Is Ro going? Where's my ticket?
Well, it's a long story.
It's a very long-winded story.
I'll take game 4 tickets.
Well, now I didn't know you were an NBL fan. Now you're an NBL fan. It kind of changes the whole circumstances. But I tell you what, next season, whatever happens, us three, we're going to be, because you're going to become a big NBL fan now, Lee.
Why is Annabelle going? Well,
she loves it.
Why
now.
is this not the Daily Dribble team to go?
Yeah, no, she loves it now. Like she almost wants to go more than me.
Yeah.
No, that's not true, but she loves it. So yeah, I think we should stop giving her airtime. Fellas, the NBL, it's very exciting. Next week, I think, time depending, we're looking at having the boys from Fifth and Dribble, who I've currently got the wager on with.
Yes.
I was stoked to be a part of their podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Good
so
listen.
I think fantastic lads there, Matt and Locke. I think we're going to have them on next week's show, so we're looking forward to breaking down. We potentially might have an NBL champion at that point, so we'll break down all the happenings there, as well as talking about the NBA. So looking forward to having the lads on next week, hopefully.
Good stuff.
Let's move ahead.
Big
The
segment.
Daily Dribble.
Okay, so normally this is the point in the show where we give our little ad reads to Manscaped. No music today. Guys,
Cue the sad music.
we want to give a shout out to Manscaped. We had a bit of a contract with them for our initial partnership. Today's the date of its expiring. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit of a break from Manscaped and pick up those ties, hopefully in a couple of weeks, couple of months.
All good things must come to an end.
All good things must come to an end. It's part of the podcast process, but we just want to thank them truly for their support so far. It's been awesome, the experience, as well as the products we've received.
I'll keep using their product.
I said the exact same thing before the podcast. It's one of those things.
Or not, isn't it? Like we are, I'm fully on board.
Oh, me too. Great products.
Just to, I guess, as a fitting conclusion to that, Roy, what's the one product you're going to use more than any other?
The ball deodorant is my staple. I think, with brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, putting your ball deodorant on, they're the three constants on a daily basis. So.
What is it? Death, taxes, and whatever else.
Ball
deodorant.
Yes.
I think mine's going to be the lawnmower. The lawnmower 4.0, just its precision in cutting as well as reducing nicks. I sound like I'm giving an ad read, but I'm highly on board with what they're doing there. So it'll be the lawnmower for me.
And I'm going to go 2-in-1 conditioner and shampoo. I don't want to condition and then shampoo or whatever way it is. I always get confused. Just give me them both.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
That's all for Manscaped. That's all they get in this
Beautiful.
episode.
Thank you for your support, Manscaped. Guys, and just quickly though, continue to invest in the product because it is awesome. Like
it is.
We want to invest in products and be a partner with products we believe in. And they are certainly one of them. So thank you once again, Manscaped.
Get on with
The
it.
Daily Dribble.
I forgot the button there, lads.
Bit out of whack.
So what we're going to do today on today's episode, we're going to do a bit of an NBA power rankings. We have 8 teams remaining within player or title contention. We're going to go through today and rank them from 1 to 8 based on what we think of title probability. Now, guys, as always, all these segments, we love hearing from you, where we went right, where we went wrong. So be sure to hit us up on our socials. We love a chat, but, where did we go right today? I think we'll be all hopefully pretty in sync, but I think there might be a few that we differ on today's show. So I'm looking forward to getting into that.
And I mean, with most power rankings, they do change on a very frequent basis. And mine, I can speak from mine personally, mine's changed in the last few hours as well. So with
I was about to say this week it's been chopping and changing a lot based on games in the second round that have taken place. But even today, there's been some changes in the lineup there. So, Lee, let's get into it. Just quickly, I'll throw it out into the ether before we start. Do we want to start from bottom to top or top to bottom?
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Right, Lee, fire away, mate. You're number 1.
Number 1 and number 2 are pretty interchangeable at this point, but I've stuck with the Golden State Warriors, who I think will go on and win the championship in general. And it's, it's nothing that we haven't already said because they're playing a very steady game of basketball. What I saw from them in round 1 is what I'm seeing from them in round 2, and no one can really figure out how to stop them, and how can you? You've got Jordan, you've got Steph Curry, you've got Clay, and you add Jordan Poole in. How do you stop that?
Are you saying Clay, though? Because he's been god-awful so far.
He has been. But
he's been dog shit. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest. He has been poor.
Yeah, but I feel like he'll pick it up. Like, he knows what's on the line.
Do you know the thing is with Clay, though? I feel like the thing with Clay, it's almost calm before the storm.
Yeah.
Like, these players, if they have a few down games, you better be wary of what's to come because he could be knocking down a 30-point quarter any game,
scary,
to come.
In terms of that question, like players most likely to have a 25 to 30-point quarter, he would be number 1.
He'd be up there, wouldn't he? Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's done it multiple times, hasn't he? So,
Row
That's
for
fair enough.
yourself. So you've got the Warriors there, number one, Lee.
Yeah.
Row for yourself.
I've got the Phoenix Suns in my number one spot. As Lee was mentioning, 1 and 2, I think at the moment as well is pretty interchangeable.
Let's just say it then, because we're all the same. So you had 1 and 2, Warriors and Suns.
Yeah.
I had Suns and Warriors.
And I had Suns and Warriors as well. So let's discuss that a little bit. So sorry, Ro, carry on.
Yeah, look, I think Phoenix have been the best team all year, and I think in this playoff series, even though they had a little bit of a frightening round one series, I think they're back into full swing. They held their own at home court, which we expected them to do. Dallas to get that third game, but I just feel like in terms of overall team chemistry and clicking on all cylinders, having players healthy at the right time of the year, I think the Phoenix Suns are the team to beat at this point. It's difficult though, because Golden State you could say the exact same thing about.
Yeah,
But, sorry, but like I know we don't jump the gun, but this is going to be the Western Conference Finals, right? And what a series that'll be. I'll lock it in.
I don't see a world in which it isn't.
God, that's going to be exciting. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I know. We'll get into that shortly, but I think it's probably just about
nearly a lock.
But within that, like for myself, I agree. The Suns, I think having that first round, that kind of testing matchup helped them. You don't want to get a level of complacency, especially with the caliber of teams, in the second and third round and NBA finals. So I think it was good for them to be tested early. I just think as well with the Suns, Ayton, I tell you what, he's showing his credibility as that number one pick. Each day he's more and more dominant. I think he's really becoming, you got Chris Paul and Devin Booker, the kind of, I guess, the two head honchos of that team. Ayton himself, though, is part of that big three now, and he's really becoming a handful on any given night.
Got to say, though, the inclusion of JaVale McGee back in the rotation is doing them wonders.
Bismack Biyombo as well. Even the minute he gets there, their backup big situation, tremendous.
Just touching on Ayton again, I mean, hypothetically, and I know we're jumping the gun, but if the Warriors were to face up against the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference Finals, Ayton would be an absolute problem for them because I don't think they have a matchup for him.
Do you play small ball and have Draymond on him?
Yeah.
You probably have to.
Do you try and play a little bit bigger and put Looney on?
Don't get Kevon on him.
Oh, dear. No, he would torch Looney, wouldn't he? Yeah. Looney wouldn't stand a chance. But in saying that, Draymond's an elite defensive player, but just the size alone is going to be an enormous issue. I know Golden State would have their own players of issue, but that would be an enormous problem. And it's all clicking for him at the right time of the year, Ayton, isn't it?
And I was just going to say, seeing that I've got the Suns at 2, I may as well talk about
it. Yeah, true.
And just one player in particular, and you know where I'm going with it, is Chris Paul. It's probably the most exciting player in the playoffs so far from me. I don't know if I've ever seen him as efficient as he is right now.
He had a horrible game today. He had 7 turnovers.
Despite that game, but despite that, he's getting to his spot. He's knocking down his shots. He's getting absolutely everyone involved. He's so impactful on every play that he's on the court. I know LeBron gets a lot of praise at his age for being 37, and I get it. LeBron's a lot more athletic than Chris Paul is, but I feel like Chris Paul should get a bit of praise as well. He's also 37, I think a few months older than LeBron. He doesn't get that talk, Yeah,
but he's also not considered the greatest of all time.
I know, but he should be getting some praise.
Yeah, no,
he's the same age as Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah, isn't that scary? I agree 100% with what Chris Paul's doing. Just transitioning to my number 2 as well, the Warriors, and it's going to kind of chop and change this discussion today. But for the Warriors, I had them number 1 at the start of the week. And just from seeing them a little more so, I think the injury to Gary Payton hurts. He's not a big name player, but what he does to their defensive identity is huge. And what Clay's done so far, I'm in agreement wholeheartedly that he's one of these guys that can just snap and click into gear, but he's been poor so far.
Yeah.
And I think, especially coming up against these teams, even like the Grizzlies, they're going to give them a real fight, I reckon 6 or 7 games. But, if they come up against the Suns in the next round, they need everyone firing because the Suns are on a different level at the minute. So, I've still got them right up there. They're neck and neck, but the Suns just eke out the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I'm with you, to be perfectly honest. And you've mentioned all the things that I was going to mention. And I was the exact same at the start of the week. I thought Golden State Warriors, They're clicking.
Yep.
They're clicking perfectly. Few injuries, a few sort of down performances from key players. It's sort of, that to me, they couldn't outdo Phoenix Suns in the power rankings. In saying that, like I even don't know if anyone in the East would be able to stop the Golden State Warriors if hypothetically they were able to get through. But
well, on that question, before we move ahead to our third, depending on how long these series go, we might preview it next week, a potential series. But at the moment, just quickly, if we see the Suns and Warriors face off in the next round, who do you guys have lead?
Suns and Warriors.
How many games?
I've got to, or I can't say otherwise than Warriors right now in 7.
Warriors in 7.
I'll go Suns in 6 at the moment.
I'd have to go Suns in 7. And it's chop and change between those two constantly. But I think just as we speak, Suns
okay,
in
who
7.
would you go for? Who would you be barracking for? I don't know that question.
I'd go for Suns easily for the simple fact that I feel like Warriors have had their success.
Yeah, they've had their chance.
It is, but it's also just fun. Like, I think another title, and you're really, like, he's probably almost there, but Steph Curry really starts to shift up that ladder of all-time talents.
Yeah. But then on the other side of things, you want CP to get a
you do.
Yeah, I'm going for actually Suns.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fellas, let's move ahead to our third team. I might start us here. I transitioned to the East, and I've got the Miami Heat.
Oh, the Heat are up.
The Heat, number 3. I just think once, it was great to see Kyle Lowry back today, and I think he's the kind of almost that glue guy.
Had a stinker, didn't he, though?
He had a stinker, but I think he completes that team, and you look at their depth now. It's just incredible. You look at Duncan Robinson, a guy getting paid $90 million on his contract at the moment.
Yep.
He's not even playing.
Absolute albatross of a contract.
Albatross of a contract. It looks like massive overs at the minute for a guy who's not even playing. But their rotation just on both ends of the floor looks phenomenal. Loving seeing Jimmy Butler in full-on attack mode. We alluded to it the other week. Very reminiscent of what he did in that Lakers NBA Finals series a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I love seeing Jimmy when he's like this.
Playoff Jimmy.
He is just a dog.
Different beast.
He is a dog, and I think they're poised, primed, and ready to go to the NBA Finals potentially.
Yep. I'm with you actually, Nick. I've got Miami at 3. I think Miami in the playoffs are just a different animal altogether.
Yep.
We were mentioning last week, I believe it was, that you come across these teams in the playoffs, the been there, done that teams, and they're the teams that know what it takes, and even in tough situations, they can overcome the adversity and power through. And sometimes these teams love the adversity because, as we were mentioning,
say it. What is it?
Diamonds are made under pressure, Nick, and that's your catchphrase, but I'll use it this week. And look, the Miami Heat are a team which I don't think any team in their right mind would like to verse because they've gone to the last dance and haven't been able to get it done. But that probably makes them even more hungry.
Like the Suns, isn't it, with Devin Booker? You saw his expression last season at the end of game 6 there. Was it game 7? Game 6 they went to, wasn't it? Yeah, game 6, 4-2. And Devin Booker just his hands on his hips like, damn. That kind of, you come back next season hungrier than ever, and it's the same with the Heat there.
And I know they lost in game 3. Sorry, Nick. No. They lost in game 3, but I tell you what, they looked elite in games 1 and 2. The fact of the matter is that at home they should win every game, which means that they will move along to the next round. And good luck to either Boston or the Bucks, whoever makes it through to verse.
Just quickly before we go to Lee, I'm so glad you actually came in with the quote. When I thought it to you, I was like, oh, please say, don't leave me hanging. It would have been horrible.
How could I not know your catchphrase, mate?
Well done, matey. Lee, what do you reckon there? Who's your number 3?
I've got Rose Boys, the Boston Celtics. That's
love this.
Wow.
Yep,
their defense in the playoffs has stood out to me enormously. In round 1, they shut down KD. Round 2, they're slowing down. They haven't shut down Giannis, but they're definitely slowing down Giannis. And they're maybe number 1 and 2 in the world right now, Giannis and KD. So it's a big feat. I think they're built for the playoffs almost. They've got those big bodies in like Al Horford. They've got Rob Williams.
Yep.
They're dirty. And on the offensive side, if one of your star players doesn't go off, the other one's going to go off. It's very rare for both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to have stinkers.
Yep.
Personally, I love when they both go off, like that recent game where they both had like 30.
Jaylen Brown in that first half,
Yeah.
He was lights out.
Yeah,
he
he
was
was.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like he cooled off a little in the second half and Tatum got going, but goddamn, in the first half,
Isn't it funny
he
how
was money.
those two are so interchangeable in terms of like who's the 1 and 2 guy on that
That's
team?
what I was thinking watching it in the first half. I got to half time and I was about to put the question in our group. Ooh, do we
Yep.
look at Brown as the number one guy? But
I know.
it's awesome having that at your disposal. Lee, on that there with the Celtics, is there anything that worries you about this team? Or any deficiency you think they have going forward?
Not that I can think of. Like there's like I said, they're so built for the playoffs. Like they had a game where Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart went down,
And it slows down, doesn't it? The playoffs become like we've seen a lot of games even today, evident by the Heat Philly game there in Game 3, which Philly won.
Yeah.
Lower scoring, just absolute dogfights. Very reminiscent of basketball in the 80s and 90s. And the Celtics are built for that with their like the defensive identity they've got, and having that weapon like Grant Williams off the bench. Oh.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
it's handy.
Forgot their coach's name because it's pretty.
Ime
Udoka.
Udoka.
Yeah, Doka. But he's been absolutely great as head coach, taking over from Brad Stevens, might I add.
Ro, let's transition. We'll go to the number 4 team. Who have you got?
Yeah, number 14, my boys, the Beantown Boys, the Boston Celtics. Echo everything Lee's just said, but I think just offensively and defensively, they're an absolute nightmare for whatever team they come up against in the playoffs, particularly on the defensive end. Because I think, you know, the offensive side of things, teams can show up on any given night, but the defensive side of things, one night a team might be, you know, clamps on, and the next night they might be, you know, a bit lackluster. But I think the Boston Celtics are pretty defensively orientated on any given night, which is a really hard thing to sort of match up against in the playoffs.
You'd be stoked with Al Horford, wouldn't you? What he's giving you, his return back to Boston. He's been wicked, like defensively as well, and even giving you a bit offensively. Like at his age, what he's doing, he's moving well.
He's moving really well for a guy who, I guess,
big Al.
For many years we were sort of thinking, a big slow Al, just lumbering up and down the court. But he's been great. And I guess the other thing with Al is he's got all these years of experience and I guess basketball IQ and leadership. And we talk about it. I feel like it's every second week that we talk about it. But these guys with really high IQ and leadership is so valuable in these do or die games. And it really has gone on full display in the playoffs. He's been super valuable. You know, his on-court display in terms of like leading the team, but also like he's provided, you know, handy output as well. So I've been really happy with Big Al these playoffs and this season.
Lee, let's transition to yourself there. Your number 4 team, following on there from Roy.
4th spot, I had Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Even without Middleton, they're still just a juggernaut of a team.
And this is also just for all the listeners going forward based on title probability. So not just this round, going forward as well. So Lee there, the Bucks number 4. Yeah.
Even in the first 2 games of this series, I feel like Giannis's efficiency hasn't been where it has been in the past. In saying that, he's still putting up anywhere between 25 to 30 with a near triple-double every night. So you've always been able to rely on Giannis to put up a big game, but you still need those supporting casts around you. If Chris Middleton isn't going to be there, you need Drew Holiday to step up offensively as well. And if it's not Drew Holiday, it has to be one of these other guys, whether it's Grayson Allen having a big one, whether it's Bobby Porter's putting up big numbers. You can't just have Giannis having these all-star games.
No. I agree. I had the Bucks number 4, and I tell you what, that guy's shoulders must be getting sore, Giannis, because he has the weight of the world on them. And we mentioned it. I think we mentioned it together last week on the show, maybe, Roy.
We did.
That Giannis has the potential now to really assert himself, even at this young age. Still a lot of career left ahead of him as an all-time talent. If he can get this Bucks team over the line, because without Middleton, they do look a little bit shaky. It is very reliant on getting output from Brook Lopez, from Drew Holiday.
Crazy eyes.
Crazy Bobby, Grayson Allen off the bench. Like it is reliant on this, this backup cast. But, for all, Giannis has to continue to prove that he's the best player in the world. Because he was arguably one of, if not the MVP this season. Time will tell. We'll find out shortly. But he's a back-to-back MVP winner. he's got to show why he is the greatest to do it at the moment.
Yeah.
And he can really start to, kind of etch a spot on the Mount Rushmore, I reckon, of NBA players when his career's done.
You have a separation between the MVP and the greatest player in the world, do you? Because I definitely do.
Yep. No, I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Jokic or Embiid will be the MVP,
but they're not the best player in the world. Yeah, good point there. I agree definitely. I agree definitely. There's, with the MVP, you take into account team record, the weight of, dragging the players with them.
Yeah,
but it doesn't entirely come down to you being the best player.
No.
Otherwise, LeBron or KD or Steph even would have won it every year since. So I'm in agreement with you there, but I think the Bucks, they just seem to be lacking a little bit of scoring and ball handling. Like just having a guy who can handle the rock.
They just look shaky, that's all.
But I still think they're good enough to get it done. So I've got them as my fourth team there. I'll transition ahead to my fifth team, a team you've mentioned quite a bit so far, you two lads. I've got the Boston Celtics. It's going to be key picking up one on the road. Now, they let one go there in Boston. I was chopping and changing between them and the Bucks for that fourth spot, but I think the fact that the Bucks got one on the road is massive. But as I said, that name I mentioned, Grant Williams. I'm absolutely, if I was a Celtics fan, I'd be stoked with what he's given you.
He's underrated.
And these other players like Horford that we mentioned, awesome to see Rob Williams back. All these players that aren't, kind of Smart, Brown and Tatum, what they're giving you is phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're going to hang their hat on that defense. I think they've got to try and restrict the Bucks to under 100 points as often as possible, and they're going to get wins. So
it's a good change because pretty much not all season. I'd say before All-Star break though, they were very reliant on Jason Tatum. And
ISO ball.
Jaylen Brown.
It was ISO ball, and they changed it, didn't they? To a team-based
team
offense.
game now.
Yeah. And it bore fruit. They finished. What did they finish? Third? Was it third? Fourth they finished. Forgive
third,
me.
I think.
Yeah, that's poor form from me not going that. But nevertheless, their resurgence up the standings was incredible because we had
we'd ridden them off, hadn't we?
Well and truly, I had. I know you were getting to that point, but I had bashed on them substantially. So wicked to see them up and about running there. So they were my number 5 team, Celtics.
And I mean, my number 5 is the Milwaukee Bucks, and I know we're sort of coming back to previous points, but I think. Yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks at this point, I feel are a little too reliant on Giannis showing up on any given night, which, to his credit, I think most nights, it's hard to contain Giannis.
Like Memphis, isn't it? If Jar doesn't fire, they're not going to win.
Yeah, I think, sort of. But in saying that, I just feel like if Giannis does have an off night, hypothetically, then they're going to struggle. And Chris Middleton is a huge out because he's been there in big moments over the last few years. And even though he is a Ferris wheel and we sometimes catch him at the highest point and we sometimes catch him at the absolute depths, he is another option on offense. And I feel like they're just lacking that extra option at the moment.
Very quick segue real quickly before you continue. And I'll pose this to Lee as well. You go into the carnival festival, you boys are feeling good. A bit of popcorn in the belly, atmosphere's electric there.
Yes.
What are you paying for a ride on the Chris Middleton Ferris wheel? On the Ferris wheel, what are you paying for a ride?
Well,
what do you think a genuine? What does a ride cost you these days?
Well, you'd be paying about $11 for a Ferris wheel ride, but I'd probably be paying half that for a Chris Middleton one because you might only get half the ride. It might stop at the top, and you might not be getting any further. Might be waiting on the technicians to come and get you down.
So you're looking $5 to $6.
$5 to $6. Yes.
Lay for yourself. Do you reckon in that ballpark?
Question. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Still, we're pricing a Chris Middleton Ferris wheel. I'd pay the $11.50.
You pay the $11.50
because you go down and you're like, he's having a good one going down.
He wants to pay for the whole experience.
I know with the way inflation is at the moment and what things cost these days.
We're turning into a financial.
I'm going to go $8. I'll go somewhere in between you two.
Right, okay.
A hell of a ride it would be. Sorry,
let us know in the comments.
There's our question for the week. What are you paying to get on the Chris Middleton Ferris wheel? We might actually put that as a question. I'd love to hear what you guys think of that one out there.
Look, I don't really have too much more to add for the Milwaukee Bucks. I still think at their absolute best, they're as good as any team in this league. But I think they've had a few key outs, and I think they're a little too reliant on Giannis at the moment for them to be any higher than 5 on my list.
Beautiful. Let's transition to the number 6.
I haven't done my 5.
Oh, haven't you?
I haven't
Oh,
done my
sorry,
5. I'll
pal.
rattle it off
Yeah,
quick.
Oh, sorry, mate.
I'll go on the Heat, and I know you had them higher. I had them a bit lower.
Mm.
They have been playing great. They're absolute dogs. Comes back to that Heat culture. I'm a bit scared of the injuries surrounding Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler.
Back today, Jimmy firing. He had 30-plus points.
But they're just so deep. Mix that deepness with the absolute dogs they are. It brings this feisty team to you.
The deepness.
Depth, even.
The depth.
Deepness would be a word.
I liked.
The
Oh,
camera's
dear.
gone.
Oh dear!
Oh, no.
I'll fix the camera.
The deepness has gone off indeed. We're back.
Oh, we're not back.
We're back. We're back, Lee. Stop touching.
Yep. Yeah, good
All
stuff.
right, we're back.
That'd be a bit confusing for the audio listeners
Yeah,
out there,
I tell
but
you what.
the camera just went out of focus. I think it just matched up with our confused look.
Yeah, confused look indeed. No, absolutely. So what is it? So the injury concern, is it, Lee, as to why that you've got them down there?
Not even the injury concern. I just think if they go against any of the teams I've put above them, the teams above them are going to come out on top.
So you don't think they'd match up well with the Celtics? Or match up well with the Bucks?
They'd
even
match
from
up
the
well. I think both games would probably go to 6 or 7, but I just
bearing in mind they hold home court advantage over both.
Yeah. That's why I've put the other teams above them.
Why?
I mentioned
Because the Heat hold home court.
I mentioned all my points. I just have more faith in the teams above.
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
The Heat are great, but yeah, with the injury concerns are probably my main point.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Let's transition to our number 6 teams, bro.
These will be some new teams that we haven't talked about.
No, because they're lower.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I've missed you. I'm so glad
I've
you're
missed
back.
this
Come
as
here.
well.
Come here.
Dear.
Excellent. I love it.
Number 6 for me, Memphis Grizzlies on my list.
6.
Yeah, number 6.
I will say that as well. We can tie it in together. I
You're
have them
6.
6.
You put them 6 as well.
Well,
Okay.
you also have to look at I guess who they're coming up against in this current series and the likelihood of them getting over the top of them. I know it's a 1-1 in this series against Golden State, but that win that they had also took a Ja Morant 47-point game, which I don't like as superstar as Ja Morant is. I don't anticipate that to happen every single game, and I think Golden State are just heads and shoulders above the Memphis Grizzlies in the playoffs. And the other thing with the Memphis Grizzlies is, particularly in that first round, they showed weaknesses that I hadn't seen throughout the course of the regular season, and they were sort of frightening me a little bit, just for the simple fact that I thought, hopefully they're not going to be one of these teams which show up really well in the regular season, a la Utah Jazz, for example. And then fall off dramatically in the playoffs. As it turns out, they did enough to get over that round 1 opponent.
Which is great for their development going forward. Because as we've said, they're a team for the next 5 to 10 years. So it's awesome to see them get over that hump.
And I think, in the next few years, they could be like legitimate contenders along with, Phoenix and Golden State. But I think just this year, there's still a few things that they need to work on for mine before they get over the hump. Turning into legitimate championship contenders. They're just in that bracket below for me.
Well, for me, I had them 6 as well. I think Ja, you're looking at a top 10 within the NBA now. He is starting to really firmly plant himself within that conversation. In regards to this series, first the Warriors, here's a little thing I wouldn't mind seeing them try. So they're 1 apiece at the moment. I wouldn't mind them seeing. Yeah, was that right? That was right, wasn't it? It sounded right in my head, but I wouldn't mind seeing them bring Steven Adams back into the fold.
Yep.
He kind of lost his graces in that series versus the Timberwolves after the first game or two. Cole Anthony Towns ran him a bath, but I wouldn't mind seeing him come back into the fold versus the Warriors, get rid of Xavier Tillman out of the starting lineup, see what him and Ja can do together in like a pick and roll situation against an undersized, whether they play Draymond Green or Kevon Looney.
You know he was in health and safety protocols. That's why he hasn't been playing.
Yeah, but he's back now, is he?
He's back.
Yeah. So I wouldn't mind seeing them
he'll
reintegrate him back in. But I think they were even looking at getting rid of him out of that starting lineup anyway. So
I reckon they'll bring him in.
Yes, they need some offensive output out of they need more running mates. That is the key. It cannot be solely reliant on Ja. It's kind of very similar to, what was the other team we just mentioned a moment ago? The Bucks, should I say?
Yep.
The Bucks. It can't be all reliant on Giannis. So hopefully Ja, Yeah.
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 Jar can get some help.
Outcast,
You know, that's
Andre 3000.
that's supporting casting Desmond Bain. Like he needs to be that number 2. So hopefully he can knock down some threes, attack the rim, and get some buckets on the board. And you know, stranger things have happened. I'm a believer in this team. I wrote them off for the last couple of years, but I am all on board the Grizzlies train.
And I mean, just before Lee goes, just quickly with the Grizzlies, they've had an incredible record without Morant this year.
Give us a break.
I don't have it on hand at the moment, but I know last time I looked, they had an incredibly good record without him. So the team overall is just really impressive, and I can't wait to see what they do over the next few years.
Absolutely.
And I've got the Philadelphia 76ers when they have Joel Embiid, though. Without him, they're probably 8th. But
so going forward, title probability, do you have them as your 6th ranked team to win a title?
Yep, I've got them at 6.
Okay.
And the 2 games where Joel Embiid wasn't there just showed how valuable he is. They had a couple of people step up. They had Tobias Harris step up in game 1 with 27. They still lost. And they had Maxey step up with 34 in game 2, which made me proud, but they still lost.
Made you proud?
Proud father figure.
I was about to say you and him pretty close. Proud?
Pretty close, yeah. Good mates.
Sorry,
but I don't know if it's a coaching thing or an individual player thing, but why isn't James Harden stepping up in game 1 and game 2 without Joel Embiid? I feel like this guy can't have those high volume scoring games unless the whole team and the whole game plan is built around this guy.
Disgusting, isn't it? A fact I think we mentioned last week, the fact he is one of the greatest scorers of the 21st century, and his almost reluctancy to score.
He's nervous to shoot. He put up, I think, 13 and 15 shots in game 1 and game 2. I was having a look at the 2018 Western Conference Finals versus Golden State. He was putting up anywhere between 20 and 30 shots a game.
Can I tie that in, actually? I'll tie it in with an NBL point.
Yeah.
For as much as, even in the start of game 3 the other night versus Melbourne United, and last night in our first game against the Sydney Kings, Josh Adams.
Yes.
You either love him or hate him, or at times both. He had a bit of a stinker last night, but that guy has got balls the size of coconuts.
Yeah.
And they said in the broadcast the other night in game 3, semi-final there against Melbourne United, he's not going to die wondering.
No.
This guy, rain, hail, or shine, is just going to put shots up. And last night he missed his first 7 shots or something stupid. The guy just keeps shooting.
Mamba mentality.
Much to sometimes the chagrin of us fans. You and I were like, oh, shit. Can you just
tone
it down a little bit?
Yeah,
but he's taking shots. And you want Harden at least to come out with that mentality. I know I'm a out-and-out scorer.
He can do it.
I can do it. I've put up 30 points, for a season. Come out and show that hustle and intensity and fire and willingness to score.
I don't think his mind was there. In game 1 and 2.
His mind hasn't been there since he joined Philly. He had that first couple of games where he was all right, and he's been pretty awful since.
But particularly in Miami, the nightlife in Miami. He would have been out.
Him and Jack Harlow together?
I reckon so, and Tyler Hero there would have been there. But
you reckon the boys are out and about there, Lee, soaking up the nightlife?
I think JH would have been in amongst it for sure.
What's the drink of choice on the night out, lads?
Drink of choice, anything that's been bought for me.
Facts. Yeah, Lee. You a beer guy, cider, cocktail?
Not a beer guy, that's all I'll say. Hate beer.
You look like I reckon you're a spirits guy. I reckon you could throw back some shots.
I reckon Lee's a high class alcohol guy.
You think
like a cosmopolitan.
I don't know, espresso martini or
something on the rocks. And
ice
and
little whiskey on the rocks.
Yeah.
Whereas Nick, you're more of a
fat lamb.
You're a goon bag type operation.
I'm a cheap opera. Here you go. Actually, my mates. Shout out to all my mates. I'm not sure if any of them listen. I think they all hate basketball.
All 2 of you, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Good one, man.
Including me.
They were absolutely stoked the other week. I went out for a couple of drinks and I chewed the ear off some of the JackJumpers players. Made some new friends there, but they were stoked that I bought a round because I'm notorious. They always say I skimp out and whatever, but
I hate rounds. Buy your own drinks.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah,
I hate
with you,
rounds
actually.
too, but I made sure to get my rounds in There was a few other blokes coming a bit later. I made sure to get my rounds in while the numbers were small.
I
That's a
won't do
class
it.
act by you, Nick.
I
I'm happy with that.
I don't do rounds because
Yeah.
imagine you can't do it with 6 guys. So
No.
but someone's going to skimp out and
Absolutely.
weasel their way out of not.
They
not
think it's
playing.
me, but I just never partake in
And
rounds.
I mean, the other thing is, what if you go up during happy hour? Like,
Yeah.
you're the one saying, "Look, boys, I'm up.
I'm
up.
on. It's my round."
This is
Yeah.
my time to shine."
Absolutely.
Next time they
How
go
about
up-
I get the next 3 rounds and I'm done for the night?
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Fellas, let's move ahead though.
Okay,
Good
Is that-
stuff.
so we've all done our number 6 teams?
Yes.
Beautiful. Let's transition to 7. We've got 2 to go, lads. We're on the power clock now. I'll start us.
Mm-hmm.
I've just changed this in the last minute.
Oh, okay.
Last minute change.
Yeah, last minute switch up. I've gone the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
Now, I did have them 8. I've transitioned them up to 7. They got a nice win today over the Phoenix Suns. Brings the series back to 2-1, which is fantastic. Getting that win there in Dallas. Shout out to our man XL. He would love seeing a bit of Luka magic happen there. Dustin Schumacher.
Hope you're well, Excel.
We love what he does there. But Luka, again, it's the same. It seems to be a recurring theme, whether it's Giannis, whether it's Embiid, whether it's, Ja. You know, we need Luka to have some running mates. And he got that today. He got that in Brunson, who balled out. You're getting some contributions from Kleber, from Dinwiddie, from these other guys. Like, Luka can only do so much. And I feel like a broken record saying that. I think going forward, though, whether it's this season or it's not this season, but going forward in the next couple of seasons, they need a genuine big, I think.
Yeah.
A big who's an offensive
Couldn't
threat,
agree more.
can block up the paint, but I think their small ball lineup, you look at Golden State Warriors and Dallas, their small ball lineup stacked up against each other. It's not even close.
Yep.
So I think going forward, they need to address that. But I think Luka is an all-time talent. You can see a world in which they get over the Suns, but a highly, highly exciting series there.
Just back to that sort of need for a big man for the Dallas Mavericks. Like, it's why that trade that's touted for Rudy Gobert is so attractive. And I'd love to see it happen because
I just don't know what they have to offer.
yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, you'd probably think that Tim Hardaway, who's on the outer at the moment, would have to be involved in that offer. Maybe Birdie Beetle, but still, it's just I know what you mean. They don't have enough to offer.
It's not a great war
in
chest.
an ideal world, they would love him. They would love him.
Absolutely. 7 from you, lads. What have you got? Let's go, Lee.
I've got him 7 as well, and
7.
I haven't got much else to say after what you've said. But I just love this team way more than when Porzingis was on it. I'm happy he's out
they're
of there.
fun to watch, aren't they?
They're
That
fun
small
to
ball
watch.
lineup, it is fun to watch.
Yeah, and Jalen Brunson's playing the best basketball he's ever played. Spencer Dinwiddie looks way better than he did when he was in Washington. He actually looks quite promising.
Yeah,
and Luka's doing Luka things. I like them.
Yeah, I'm with you guys as well. Dallas at 7 for me. You know, we saw in that last game they've actually showed signs that they could
do it.
Put up a threat in this series.
Oh, imagine.
When in reality, I didn't really give them too much
I
of a
would
chance.
froth a Warriors Mavs series.
Oh, wouldn't that be incredible?
2 potentially small ball lineups going up against it. You've got Steph against Luka.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't want to say that, but I'm kind of rooting for that series.
Oh, that would be unreal.
Fun.
And
Fun.
we spoke about before, like with Giannis, like him getting over the top of the Celtics and how that builds his legend even more. Imagine if Luka Doncic somehow brought this Dallas Mavericks team where he's clear and away the best player on that team.
It's like the We Believe Warriors, isn't it? Almost to a certain extent, like that kind of real underdog, kind of backs against the wall, doing big things.
It's not going to happen, though. I'm sorry to be the logic guy, but
hate to burst the bubble.
Chris Paul isn't going to have another 7 turnover first half game.
That Phoenix Suns team is something else.
That doesn't happen.
But saw good signs in that series, and who knows.
Number 8, here it is, Lee. What have you got?
I've got the Grizzlies at 8. They'll go down in this series, I believe. But the experience that Ja Morant is gaining right now.
You can see the pathway, can't you? The steps they're taking.
It's just it's so beneficial for his career pathway.
Trajectory like that, they're looking real good.
Yeah, his confidence is already very high. You can tell he's kind of sneaky humble, but his confidence is growing even more.
Top 10 within the league, Ja?
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. I've got my number 8, the Philadelphia 76ers.
You hate Philly.
No,
and so
well,
does the
yeah,
Row.
no, actually I do, because they pissed me off
So
with how
down.
much respect, and I gave them the number 1 seed year after year in our preseason
Yeah.
rankings. They've just disappointed me, and even as I said, what we've seen with Harden so far, disappointing.
Yep.
It's amazing the difference Embiid makes having him back in the fold, but I just don't think they're there. I think the Heat are too good. And then, they need to, if they are any chance whatsoever, they need Harden, the scorer, not the facilitator, not the backseat passenger. They need the scorer,
Not the
Harden.
clubber.
Not the support player. Imagine being a support player. I love these guys, but just Tobias Harris and Maxey.
Oh, this team pisses me off.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris pisses me off,
I'm with
even though he's been better. I had a good conversation with someone during the week about him, and
Yeah.
he's been better,
Mm.
but for what he's getting paid, he's not doing enough. He needs to average 25 points to be warranted what he's worth. But you look at him, Harden pisses me off. Well, they've got rid of Simmons now because he pissed me off. But nevertheless, it's a team that they make me mad.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've got them in my last spot as well, and I've been burnt so many times by the Philadelphia 76ers in a playoff setting, and yes, they won Game 3. They had Joel Embiid back. I'm understanding of that, and well done to them. But at the end of the day, I don't trust them. I don't trust their personnel. The only guy on this team that I trust on a nightly basis is Joel Embiid. And if you've got only one guy on your team that you can trust, and everyone else is potentially a liability on any given night, I don't like that at all. Another name that I'll add to your list that I don't particularly trust or like at the moment is Doc Rivers. I think he's a guy who Philadelphia may be better suited without going forward. So I think that they're just, even though they won that Game 3, they're absolutely no chance to get over this Miami Heat squad, which is absolutely clicking on all cylinders.
Lads, I tell you what, it's always a good indication that we've gone long enough in the piece when I'm got my legs just about crossed, about to piss my pants off. Probably a good sign it's about time to wrap her up. But guys, we had a blast doing this. It's always fun. It's whatever happens from here, all 8 teams, it is an absolutely star-studded lineup of talent, going forward. So we're certainly looking forward to what the NBA, the rest of the playoffs hold.
Yes.
It's going to be phenomenal games, phenomenal matchups. Certainly eagerly anticipating that as well. I tell you what, the NBL game 2 tomorrow. Look out! My heart's already pumping.
Massive shout out to the Tassie JackJumpers.
The energy that the NBL is generating at the moment, like the shot that Josh Adams had in game 3 the other night versus Melbourne United, shown around the world. Like the interest and traction it's gaining. This league, I've said it. I've told you, every single listener out here, get involved. Go check it out. Watch a game or two. It is phenomenal, the talent involved. So certainly looking forward to that, seeing that game tomorrow. Guys, it's going to be a massive week. As I said, we're looking forward to hopefully having on the boys from 5th and Dribble next week. We're going to discuss everything from the NBA, the NBL. Hopefully we'll have a champion crowned. Hopefully the boys from Tassie. Lads,
Come on.
best time of the year.
Oh, come on, Jack.
Come on, boys. Get involved. Get up and about for the Tassie JackJumpers. Guys, till next week, we thank you for your continued support, and we will talk to you soon. Till then, guys, love you. Bye.